3 spine-chilling true horror stories exposed. Terrifying encounters alone in the night. Sarah's heart raced as she pulled into her driveway, the streetlights casting eerie shadows on the familiar street. Each night held a comfort. Her 8-year-old son, Timmy, greeted her with a smile. Tonight was different. The air crackled with tension as her phone buzzed. "Mom, there's someone in the house." Panic twisted in her stomach. At first, she thought it was just one of Timmy's silly pranks. But as she drove, the shadows felt deeper, darker. That feeling of safety, a warm cocoon of home, vanished as chilling memories flooded her mind. What if? Hadn't Mrs. Jenkins next door always lingered just a few seconds longer with a plate of cookies? Thoughts spiraled. She shook her head, scrunching her brow. "Focus, Sarah." She accelerated toward home, the tension squeezing her chest with every tense heartbeat. As she approached their block, an unsettling quiet blanketed the night, robbing the air of life. No crickets, no rustling leaves, just silence. Dread settled in like a lead weight as she parked, her palms clammy on the steering wheel. Shadows danced behind the windows of her home, pulsing with some unseen threat. She grabbed her flashlight, fingers trembling, heartbeat echoing in her ears. Inside, an oppressive stillness swallowed her whole. She called for Timmy, but all she got was silence. Each room felt colder, the weight of something being off pressed down on her. She felt it, a trail of toys leading her to the basement door, slightly ajar. The darkness beyond seemed to beckon, ready to swallow her fears whole. Creaking stairs announced her descent into the hidden abyss. The air grew thick, almost suffocating. "Timmy!" she called, voice trembling, echoing back like a taunt. Then she stopped, heart in her throat. A figure loomed in the basement. Mr. Clark, their neighbor. Why was he here? He stood too close, gripping Timmy's arm with a sinister resolve, his eyes sparkling with something dark, something that shattered her trust. "Mom, Timmy's voice, weak and unsure, filled the chilling space between them. The basement, once a room for laughter and games, transformed into a nightmare. Fear rippled through Sarah as she processed the horror unfolding. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Desperation swelled in Sarah. She took a breath, feeling the cold sweat dripping down her back. What was she about to do? Confront him? What if this was a trick? A nightmare she couldn't wake from? Each moment stretched as time stood still, the air heavy with unspoken threats. Paranoia sang her name. Trust shattered, her community now masked by shadows. She inhaled sharply, feeling a surge of determination. Whatever happened next would define tonight. In that loaded moment, as Timmy's wide eyes darted between them, Sarah prepared to act, her heart pounding in her chest like war drums. Would she be able to save him before the darkness consumed them both? The night was only beginning. "Let him go," Sarah shouted, her voice trembling but filled with desperation. She took a step forward, her flashlight beam cutting through the darkness, illuminating Mr. Clark's face. His smile twisted into something that felt wrong, hungry. The grip he had on Timmy tightened, and the boy whimpered softly. "Mom, please," he whispered, the fear in his voice slicing through her. Mr. Clark chuckled, a low, raspy sound that echoed in the silent basement. The shadows seemed to swell around him. "He doesn't want to leave, do you, Timmy? Let him go," Sarah yelled again, stepping closer, each step fueled by adrenaline. In that moment, something shifted. The basement walls felt like they were closing in. A pressure weighed down on the air, thick with dread. She could almost see it, an invisible force that gripped Timmy's small frame, chaining him to the dark. "Mom!" Timmy cried out, his eyes wide with terror. "Help me!" Before she could process the scene, Mr. Clark released Timmy, who stumbled back, wide-eyed and terrified. Sarah lunged forward, catching her son in her arms, holding him tightly against her, feeling his small frame shake with fear. "What are you doing?" she gasped, her heart racing. The basement, once a mere storage space, felt like a pit of horror. She felt a dark gaze on her, the shadows swirling, whispering doubts into her mind. Mr. Clark's posture shifted, almost predatory. "You don't know the things he's seen, do you?" he hissed. "He's special, and he could unlock doors, but doors need keys." A shiver ran down Sarah's spine. The fear hanging in the air felt alive, electric. "Back away," she commanded, brandishing the flashlight like a weapon. The beam flickered, a haunting reminder of the uncertain light in this suffocating darkness. "Keys are meant to be used, Sarah," Mr. Clark said, his voice slick with menace. "Let me show you." With that, he lunged not at Timmy, but at the wall behind him. Sarah felt a suffocating grip around her throat, an unexplainable terror that froze her in place. As Mr. Clark pressed his palm against the damp wall, it shimmered like liquid, twisting and writhing. "Timmy, run!" she screamed, but he stood frozen, entranced by the sight of something unnatural. "Mom, I can see them," Timmy whispered, eyes wide, a strange fascination flickering through his fear. "There are so many of them, they're calling to me." A laugh erupted from Mr. Clark, unsettling and dark. "See? He understands." Unlike you, Sarah's heart thundered, confusion swirling through her. She felt dizzy as shadows thickened around her. The basement seemed to breathe, alive. What was happening? "Run, Timmy. You must," but before she could finish, a deafening crash shook the foundation. Timmy darted to the stairs, but Mr. Clark moved like a shadow, cutting off his escape. "You think you can just leave? You're more involved in this than you realize." In a state of panic, Sarah lunged toward Mr. Clark, ready to fight. But suddenly, the room darkened, suffocating her vision. The flashlight died with a sickening flicker, plunging them into absolute blackness. "Mom!" Timmy's voice echoed off the walls, now confused with whispers not belonging to the living. The air around them thickened with a sinister hunger. Panic seized Sarah. "Hold on to me," she cried, her voice strained against the suffocating fear. The basement had transformed into a labyrinth of terror, with unseen forces claiming space around them. A new sound pierced through the dark, a low, unnatural growl, reverberating with malicious intent. It rolled like thunder, igniting her fear into a savage frenzy. What was lurking just beyond the veil of darkness? "Timmy, where are you?" she shouted, dread pooling in her chest. But as desperation peaked, the answer came not from her son, but from the shadows themselves, whispering secrets meant to remain buried. As the basement closed in, she sensed it. Something was drawing closer, ready to claim them both. Would she be able to uncover the true horror that lay hidden in the shadows before it was too late? The night was just beginning. The darkness swallowed them whole. Sarah clutched Timmy tightly, feeling his tiny heart racing frantically against her chest. The low growl reverberated through the oppressive air, a primal sound that sent ice coursing through her veins. She felt the shadows sway, morphing into grotesque forms of dread. "Mom!" Timmy's voice quivered. "I don't want to be here." "Neither do I, baby," she whispered, her breath hitching. The basement felt alive, pulsating like an angry beast. Every inch of her screamed to get out, to escape the suffocating gloom. But how? The air thickened further, and the whispers grew louder, swirling like a malevolent wind. They scratched at her mind. Not words but emotions: fear, despair, hope, something else, something darker. "Mom!" Timmy whimpered again, a pang of desperation weaving through his words. Then the growl shifted, morphing into something more sinister, a voice, low and malicious. "You dare to challenge the darkness?" Sarah froze. The sound crawled under her skin. Her instincts yelled to run, yet her body remained rooted, paralyzed by fear. "Timmy, we have to move," she finally managed to say, her voice trembling. "Where? I can't see anything." Timmy's panic rose, feeding off hers. "Just follow my voice," she shouted, pushing away the terror gnawing at her. The flashlight was useless now, but they had to get away from Mr. Clark, from whatever was stalking them in the dark. Taking slow steps, she felt for the wall, hoping to steady herself, hoping it would guide them. Her fingers brushed against the damp, cool surface, and a chill shot through her as it pulsed beneath her touch. "Mom," Timmy squeaked, clinging to her leg like a scared kitten. Suddenly, the growl returned, louder, angrier, more threatening. Sarah's heart raced as she turned her head, straining her ears to listen. Over the growling, a multitude of whispers began, terrifying, confusing. Was it her imagination? Or could she hear voices looking for something lost? Something trapped? "Timmy, stay close," she panted, moving faster now, guided by instinct alone. But then she stumbled, crashing into a metal shelf, jars rattling ominously. Glass shattered close by. A wave of adrenaline surged through her. This wasn't the basement she remembered. It felt like a place of nightmares. It was alive. "Mom, look." Timmy's voice broke through her thoughts, filled with sudden awe. Over his shoulder, she saw a faint light flickering in the distance. "Timmy, don't look at it." She turned him away, clamping her hand over his eyes, but curiosity was a potent force. He wriggled free, glancing back. "Why? It's so pretty." As her heart sank, the light twisted into something horrifying, reflecting but not illuminating. A warped image of the two of them trapped in a cage of darkness. The shadows danced around them, growing thicker, more tangible. "Timmy, we have to go. Now." But the shadows responded, swirling like a storm. A ghostly hiss filled the air. "Stay, little one, you belong with us." Fear gripped Sarah again, a paralyzing vice that made her limbs feel weighty, pulling her down, deeper into the abyss. "Mom?" Timmy squeaked, his voice barely above a whisper now. "Run!" she screamed, feeling the imminent threat close in around them, an overwhelming force trying to drag them under. With all her strength, she snatched Timmy's hand, bolting towards the flickering light, praying it was their way out. But the sound of laughter, dark, sinister, echoing, resounded in her ears. It was Mr. Clark. "Leave if you can, but remember, the darkness knows you well." As they burst into the light, Sarah felt a cold hand clutch her heart, fear tightening its grip. The world outside seemed unchanged, eerily calm, but the shadows lingered, whispering promises of a return. What if they were not really free? What if the darkness follows us? Timmy asked, his wide eyes searching hers for reassurance. But as she stood there, panic loomed, and the fear unfurled once more, reminding her of the malevolent hunger they had barely escaped. Was getting out the same as being safe? The night was long and their battle was only beginning. The air outside vibrated with an unsettling stillness. Nothing moved, yet everything felt wrong. They stumbled away from the basement door, Sarah's heart still pounding like a war drum. If they were free, why did the shadows cling to her like sweat on a summer day? "Mom, why are we just standing here?" Timmy's voice was small, but it cut through her fog of fear. She couldn't find an answer, couldn't shake off the feeling that something watched them from the darkness. Let us go home," she whispered, pulling him close. As they walked, the crunch of gravel beneath their feet was the only sound. No chirping crickets, no rustling leaves, just an oppressive silence that pressed down on her. The house loomed ahead, a blocky silhouette against the moonlit sky. It felt much larger, menacing, as if it had stretched its shadows in eager waiting. Each step brought her trouble. The doorknob felt cold and unwelcoming. "Are we safe?" Timmy asked, hesitating at the entrance. "Of course we are. We'll be fine," she lied, breaking the silence. All the lies ever told slipped through her lips, hollow and empty. Once inside, the house offered no comfort. The light flickered, casting strange shapes across the walls. Shadows shivered in the corners, flitting away like guilty memories. "Mom, I can feel it." Timmy's voice was edged with uncertainty. She closed the door, leaning against it with a breath of unease. The feeling of being followed hadn't vanished. Wisps of dread hung around her. Let us go upstairs. The words felt inadequate, like a flimsy shield against the darkness lurking outside. As they climbed the stairs, the floor creaked ominously beneath them, warping under each step. They reached the safety of Timmy's room, a sanctuary of toys and childhood dreams. The shadows can't come here, right? He asked, eyes wide with fear. Right, she said, though her heart fluttered with doubt. Settling on the bed, Sarah slipped an arm around him. She watched the shadows dance along the walls, each flicker akin to a devilish grin. Where was the comforting sound of a clock ticking? The furnace? The house felt dead, merely a shell. Can they hear us, Mom? Timmy asked, peering into the dark corners, straining to see what bloomed there. I don't know. Just don't answer, she suggested, feeling a chill creep up her spine. She wanted to drown out the silence, so she began humming a tune from the old days, her voice faltering with each note. Timmy looked up at her, wide-eyed. Suddenly, the temperature dropped. Goosebumps erupted across Sarah's skin. A whisper floated from the corner of the room, soft yet sinister, threading through the fabric of her thoughts. You escaped, but we're waiting. The sound was familiar. It was Mr. Clark. She recoiled. Instinct forced her to pull Timmy closer. Mom, what's wrong? Stay quiet, she breathed, scanning every shadow, searching for an escape. But the shadows seemed to swell, inching closer, their whispers rising again. A cacophony of nightmares wrapped around her ears. The walls pulsed, as if the house itself was breathing deep and heavy. Mom? Timmy's small hand gripped hers tightly. Then came a knock. Not just any knock, but a deliberate thud that sent shivers racing down her spine. It echoed through the silence, demanding entry. Who's there? She called, her voice an eerie blend of courage and fear. No answer, just the sound of something scuttling just outside the door. Timmy gasped. It knows we're here. In that moment, helplessness wrapped around Sarah like a noose. She needed to protect her son. But how? The darkness had come back, and it was hungry. Questions raced through her mind, the impending dread bubbling to the surface. How had Mr. Clark found them? Did it matter if they were outside his lair? Mom, let us go. Timmy tugged on her arm. His voice pierced through her fog now. Desperation radiated from him. What choice do we have? She whispered, fire pooling in her chest. But as they readied to open the door, an even darker shadow loomed over them, waiting with knowing intent. What hunted them from the dark? And how far would Sarah go to save Timmy? The shadow shifted, a deep abyss that swallowed the light. Sarah's breath caught in her throat, heart pounding like an alarm. It hung there, ominous and waiting, mocking the sanctity of Timmy's room, which now felt like a coffin. Mom? Timmy's voice quivered, blending with her fear. She tightened her grip on his small hand, anchoring him to her as if they could become one against the creeping dread. Stay behind me, she whispered, steel coating her voice. She took a cautious step toward the door, every creak of the floorboards clawing at her resolve. Eyes glued to the patch of darkness, she hoped against hope it was just a trick of her frayed nerves. The knock returned harder this time, like a hammer striking steel. And then, that whisper, curling into the air like smoke. Let me in, it echoed deep within her, shaking her core. Mom! Don't! Timmy whimpered, pulling back. She glanced back at him, the fear etched on his face breaking her heart. It's okay, Timmy. Just hold on tight. She turned to face the door again, mind racing, piecing together a path beyond the suffocating shadows. If they could just get out, maybe they'd be safe. But with each second that dragged, uncertainty coiled tighter around her neck. Mom, Timmy breathed, fear flooding his voice. It wasn't just weakness, it was the primal sense of danger. And as he spoke, the door rattled violently, as if whatever lurked outside wanted nothing more than to join them. Without thinking, she flung the door open, adrenaline surging through her, and froze. Mr. Clark stood there, his gnarled face twisted into a smile that was all teeth, eyes dark holes that drank in the light. You shouldn't have come back, he murmured, a sinister satisfaction dancing across his features. The shadows poured around him like liquid obsidian, stretching fingers that churned in anticipation. "Get back," she shouted, instinct kicking in. She shoved Timmy behind her, limbs trembling but unyielding. "But you're already trapped, dear Sarah." His voice felt like cold steel on her skin, cutting deep and leaving scars. Timmy whimpered softly, clenching his small fists. She could feel his fear clawing against her like a fever. "Mom, what do we do?" His innocent desperation sent waves of panic through her. "Run," she screamed, propelling them backward. The space felt too small, too constricting as shadows wriggled around their feet, wrapping around their ankles like thick vines, pulling them in. They spun and bolted, but behind them, laughter echoed insidious and mocking, reverberating through the halls and slipping behind every door. Their footsteps pounded on the stairs as they descended, yet the laughter grew louder, each chuckle curling around them like deceptive tendrils of fog. They rushed through the living room, but the world outside felt too far, trapped inside a nightmare festering at the edges of reality. The nearest window loomed before them, a barrier that may as well have been a brick wall. "Mom!" Timmy cried out, his voice high in panic. I can't breathe." She whirled to face him, eyes wild. "Hold on. Just hold on." But the shadows were rising, spilling across the floor, reaching for her son. In a frenzied move, she grabbed a lamp, yanking it free, the glass clattering to the ground. She swung it hard at the shadows, desperate to create an escape. The glass shattered, but the darkness seemed unfazed. Something cold and slithery touched her back, and a primal instinct surged through her, fear, but also fury. "No!" she screamed, swinging the light again, fighting with every ounce of strength she had left. But the room began to twist, shifting in odd angles. Reality felt like it was crumbling around them. The shadows twisted and writhed, whispering amongst themselves, tightening their grip. "Help us!" Timmy cried out, tears rolling down his cheeks. The shadows laughed, dark and low, delicious in their triumph. And then, a figure rose, silhouetted between them and the daylight. Not Mr. Clark, but something larger, more powerful, lurking just beyond their reach, eyes glimmering like shards of glass. As it stepped closer, the shadows bowed down in reverence, and Sarah realized with dawning horror they weren't the hunters anymore. What wretched horror had been conjured? And could they break free before it consumed them whole? A low rumble echoed through the room, a sound like thunder rolling in the distance, but so ominous it felt like an earthquake within her gut. The figure emerged, its form shimmering like a mirage, a grotesque blend of shapes that made her stomach churn. Eyes, yes, there were many, all glimmering with cruel delight, reflecting shadows that twisted behind it like a swarming mass of dark smoke. "Mom!" Timmy screamed, his small voice barely a whisper against the oppressive weight smothering the air. Sarah felt as if she were being crushed, panic rising in her throat like bile. Every instinct she had screamed to run, to flee this abomination that had suddenly overshadowed them. "Turn away, Timmy. Close your eyes," she coughed out, shoving Timmy behind her once more, coaxing him further into the corner as she faced the horror. "Come play with us." The voice, a chorus of hisses and whispers, slithered through the air, seducing and taunting. The shadows danced in response, slithering around her feet and reaching for Timmy. They writhed like snakes, drawing nearer with each heartbeat. "No!" Sarah shouted, swinging the lamp wildly, shards of glass shooting across the floor like sparkling confetti. For a moment, her heart leapt in hope when she thought the shadows hesitated, recoiling as if stung. Yet it was fleeting. They surged back, more relentless, swirling like a storm. "Help us," the voice taunted, dripping with malice. The air seemed to thicken, pressing in, making it hard to breathe, to think. "We are lost, and so shall you be. Timmy, I need you to listen to me. We're getting out of here." Her voice was frantic, trying to mask the icy tendrils of despair curling up her spine. She searched the room, eyes darting like a trapped animal. She had to find a way, some glimmer of a chance for escape. With every ounce of strength, she yanked Timmy up, dragging him toward the hall, But the moment they stepped away from the brief safety of the room, the shadows surged with vicious intent, wrapping around her legs like icy chains. "Let go," she shouted, kicking and fighting. The darkness only tightened its grip, laughter echoing in a wicked choir all around them. Sarah stumbled, pulling Timmy with her, desperately looking for anything to turn the tide. A shadow slipped away from the writhing mass. A part of it seemed to separate, and emerged as a shrouded form. Mr. Clark's face twisted into an unmistakable hellish grin. "You see, Sarah? You can't fight what you already belong to," he snarled. The overwhelming weight of hopelessness bore down on her, each measure taking more of her will to resist. But underneath that cold terror, the fire of a mother's love ignited, urging her on. "We will not be yours," she yelled, drawing strength from the boy behind her and channeling it into one last act of defiance. With a powerful shove, she pushed Timmy past the threshold of the entrance, urging him toward the stairs leading to freedom, just as she felt the shadows tighten around her throat. "Run. Don't look back. Go, Timmy." As he fled, she could hear his small, terrified cries fading, but all she could do was stand as the figure loomed over her, whispering sweetly, calling her home. The laughter grew into a violent symphony, an orchestra of terror that played at the very strings of her sanity. And in that moment, a single heartbeat, suspended in time, Sarah felt the shadows envelop her completely. She was unaware of the door swinging shut behind Timmy, closing off the light in a world that grew darker by the second. Alone, he stumbled down the hallway, tears streaming down his cheeks, each step echoing louder as the shadows conspired above, still laughing. They were after him now. What had happened to his mother? What darkness awaited him at the end of the hall? Timmy stumbled into the hallway, the air thick with a cold dread that clung to him like a second skin. Shadows clawed at the edges of his vision, whispering promises of terror, and he ran with a heart pounding like a drum. "Mom!" he cried, wishing she would materialize from the darkness. The word felt useless, echoing back at him, swallowed by the malevolence that cloaked the house. He darted past doorways that yawned wide like gaping mouths, their depths obscured by shadow. Trembling, he fought the urge to look back. Each step forward felt like an act of defiance, but there was a weight in the air, a heaviness that made every breath feel like a challenge, as if something were pressing down, urging him to surrender. A flicker caught his eye, a brief shimmer of light. He glanced sideways, just for an instant, and saw a door at the end of the hall, glowing like a beacon of hope. Without thinking, he bolted toward it, lungs burning. But as he neared the door, instinct screamed that he was not alone. The shadows writhed, stretching out toward him like grasping fingers, taunting him with the echo of his mother's screams. "Timmy!" A voice, soft yet filled with a sharp edge, sliced through the air. He froze, heart racing as he glanced back. It was Mr. Clark, the same twisted grin etched deep on his pale face. "Why run?" he asked, slow and teasing. "There's nowhere to go. You can't escape what's meant for you. Go away." Timmy shouted, pushing past the fear that wrapped around his throat. He picked up speed, each footfall ringing out louder like a thunderous beat of his own fragile heart. But the shadows, their laughter rose like a chilling wind, weaving through the hall, tightening like a noose around his neck as if they reveled in his fear. He reached the door, fingers trembling. Would it lead to freedom or more horrors? The shadows jabbed at his resolve, making every moment stretch as time condensed around him. He shoved the door open, the hinges creaking like a warning. Light spilled through, illuminating a room beyond that looked familiar yet wrong. "Mom?" he called again, hope mingling with a rising suspicion. The light beckoned him inside, a stark contrast to the darkness that hung around his shoulders. He stepped through, heart hammering, only to feel a gust of cold air swirl around him before slamming the door shut behind him. Inside, the room was filled with his mother's things. Old photos lined the walls, resembling moments captured in a happy bubble. But something was off. Each photo featured her smiling beside Mr. Clark. Timmy's stomach dropped as he realized the joy in their faces turned soured in the light of the truth. She had been drawn in too, just like him, Timmy turned, panic clawing at him. "Mom, where are you? Please." Suddenly, the shadows pooled in the corners of the room, retreating from the light, but still reaching. They thrummed with anticipation as Mr. Clark's form slipped into the shadows, his voice a malicious caress. "You chose this room, as you chose the darkness. Calls to you, Timmy. It wants you. Come closer." "No," Timmy shouted, backing away. His breath quickened, desperation spiraling through his mind. He felt trapped, the walls closing in around him as the shadows danced with menace. "You can't have me." Then he spotted it, a bright glint beneath a nearby table. A glimmer of glass. A shard jagged and sharp. Maybe, just maybe, it was his only weapon against the encroaching nightmare. Heart racing, he lunged for it, grasping it tightly. But with that movement, the shadows surged forward, the laugh of Mr. Clark echoing, both triumphant and furious. "No escape, dear boy. You're more like her than you know. Embrace your destiny." Timmy felt the darkness surge, the shadows hungry and alive. "I will not," he roared, brandishing the shard. As the shadows lunged, his blood ran cold. There was nowhere left to run. The darkness was closing in, ready to consume him whole. But was it truly over? Timmy stood at the crossroads of fight or flight, ready to face the horror that awaited. Would the truth finally surface, or would he be lost to oblivion like his mother? And just then, a new shadow flickered in the corner. Something else was rising, something ancient and terrible, lurking just outside the light. The shadows lunged, swirling like living smoke. Timmy's breath hitched, pulse thundering in his ears as he brandished the shard. He was not ready to submit. He couldn't. His fingers tightened around the glass, jutting out like a knife from his grip. "Come closer," the voice whispered, silky and dark, wrapping around him like a shroud. Each syllable dripped with hunger, with promise. Timmy's instincts screamed to run, but the shadows pulsed with a maddening allure, almost seducing him to step forward. Light flickered from the shard in his hand, sending splintered rays toward the edges of darkness. The shadows recoiled initially, hissing like vapors scorched by fire. But it wasn't enough. The flicker was feeble against the vast and encroaching gloom. "Your mother was weak just like you." Mr. Clark's laughter filled the air, rich with malice. "She surrendered to the darkness. You will too." With a swift motion, Timmy swung the shard toward the encroaching shadows, each movement fueled by all the fear he felt. "Get away!" he screamed. The echoes of his own voice faded, swallowed by the swallowing darkness around him. The shadows recoiled, eyes glimmering like embers in their depths. But Mr. Clark surged forward, his grin widening, his figure more solid, his presence like iron. "You think you can fight what you are?" he taunted, each word cutting through Timmy like the glass shard he held. "You belong to this place." The room began to warp, the walls distorting, memories shifting as old photos morphed into grotesque shapes. Timmy's mother's face twisted, her smile turning into a ghastly rictus. She looked trapped, pleading, lost in the abyss. "Mom!" Timmy gasped, his heart breaking. It was true. The shadows were more than just whispers, they were soul snatchers. They devoured hope, consumed light, leaving only darkness behind. He felt their pull, drawing him in, fingers of despair brushing against his skin. Was this what she felt as they took her? The thought drove him deeper into panic. A surge of determination ignited. "No!" he shouted, stepping back, the shard leading the way. "I want to end up like you." With a primal scream, Timmy lunged at Mr. Clark, teeth clenched, the shard aimed directly at the twisted figure, light glinting cruelly off the jagged edge. But the shadow reached out, faster than he could react. It whispered around him, caressing, enticing him into surrender. "You'll never win. We've waited for you. You will never leave." Timmy crashed into the wall, shock rippling through him. His vision swam as darkness surged forward, consuming him in waves. For a brief second, he understood what the shadows wanted. He was not the first. They sought to drown him in despair, enslave him to the dark just as they had done to his mother. The shard slipped from his fingers, clattering to the floor. Silence gripped him, a cold and terrible silence, where even thoughts felt suffocated. But then a pulse of warmth surged in his chest. A rush of memories flooded back, images of laughter, love, and sunlight breaking through the clouds. "No, no," he whispered, shaking his head as he fought against the binding shadows. They couldn't take those memories. In a moment of clarity, Timmy's voice rose again, stronger this time. "I am not like you." As if responding to his defiance, the shadows withdrew slightly, a shudder rippling through them. Hope fractured through the darkness, and with it came a flicker of light deep within Timmy's mind. "Embrace the light and fight." Another voice echoed a woman's voice, familiar and kind. He pressed forward, shaking off the remnants of despair that clung to him. The shadows recoiled, their howls of outrage mingling with the echoes of a long-lost urgency. "Timmy!" But before he could understand, he felt a rush of air behind him. A crack in the darkness widened. The door he had entered through was appearing again, its familiar glow beckoning him. He raced towards it, but the shadows were furious, slashing and darting after him, clawing at his heels. "You'll regret this," they hissed, ice-cold fingers grasping at his ankles. Timmy reached the doorway and leapt through just as the darkness surged forward. He stumbled into the next room, breathless, heart hammering a sanctuary from the shadows. But as he turned back, the door shattered, shadows spilling through in a frantic dance. There, lurking behind the doorframe, Mr. Clark stood once more, his eyes seething with wrath. "You may have escaped for now, but you cannot run forever." Timmy trembled, heart racing anew. He took a step back, but the shadows swirled in like a storm, hungry, haunting, relentless. Would he always be pursued, tethered to the darkness? A cold wave of dread washed over him. What more did the shadows want? How could he be free? As the darkness inched closer, ready to reclaim its prize, something whispered in the corners of his mind there were others, more within the house than just whispers. And they were watching, waiting for their moment. With that, dread took hold again, claws digging deep. What had he awakened? Timmy's heart raced, the sound pounding like a war drum in his ears. The shadows lunged again, greedy and insatiable, their cold breath chilling him to the bone as they slithered across the floor. Each flicker of light from the splintered shard in his hand felt feebler by the second, like trying to chase away a storm with a flickering candle. "Run," he told himself, but his feet felt glued to the floor. Each inch forward met with an invisible weight dragging him back. Despair threaded through his nightmares, creating a web that ensnared him, binding him to the darkness. "Why fight?" Mr. Clark's voice oozed through the air, thick and intoxicating. "Let go and join me. Be free of your pathetic fears." Timmy's fingers trembled around the shard, and doubt crept in. What if he gave in? What if surrendering meant relief? Deep down, he knew the answer, not just for himself, but for his mother, trapped like a leaf caught in a storm of shadows. "No!" he screamed, shaking his head violently, pushing against the dark tide threatening to drown him. It stung his eyes and seeped into his mind, whispering sweet lies of comfort and oblivion. "I will not be weak." Suddenly, a blinding light burst from the shard, illuminating everything around him. The shadows hissed and writhed, their form revealing glimpses of familiar faces, those of others like him who had fallen prey to the darkness. Each of them, stuck between worlds, beckoning him to join their ranks. They cried out in silence, losing themselves to despair. His mother's face flashed before him, radiant and alive, a stark contrast to the wailing specters around her. Hope surged in him, a fierce inferno igniting. "I will not end like this," he vowed. With newfound strength, he thrust the shard forward, its light expanding, pushing back the encroaching shadows. For a moment, the dark figures recoiled, uncharacteristic fear flashing across their features. Timmy surged forward, the heat of courage propelling him, scattering the consuming darkness like leaves in the wind. But then, A heavy hand latched onto his shoulder, dragging him back with an unforgiving grip. Timmy turned. Eyes wide in horror, the very embodiment of despair stood there. Mr. Clark's face twisted into a grotesque mask of malice, teeth glinting in the light like sharp daggers. "You think that was enough?" he snarled, an unholy fury simmering beneath his calm facade. "You've only just begun to understand." The shadows thickened, swirling around Timmy like a living vortex. They coiled tightly, and he felt their slippery tendrils wrap around him, chilling his skin, squeezing the breath from his lungs. "You don't belong here," they taunted, pushing memories to the surface, visions of failure. Times he'd run when he should have stood and fought. Suddenly, amidst the chaos, a fleeting flicker caught his eye, a door wider than before, framing a made-up scene of warmth and safety. Without thinking, he darted towards it, desperate for escape. But Mr. Clark's laughter echoed, sharp and biting, ringing in his ears. "Run, boy! But know this: what you seek lies beyond that door, your sanctuary. But this time, you'll not only face the shadows, you'll face the truth about yourself." Timmy hesitated, caught between the warmth of hope and the suffocating despair clinging to his thoughts. What truth? What lay beyond the door? Heart pounding, he glanced back one last time. The shadows surged forward, shrieking in a cacophony of rage, claws reaching for him. They were relentless, ravenous. With uncertainty gnawing at him, Timmy took a breath and sprinted through the door, just as darkness engulfed the space he had occupied. As the world behind faded into nothingness, he felt the air thicken around him, a heavy silence blanketing his new surroundings. What awaited him here? Was it safety or something far worse? Then, as the cold air began to swirl again, whispering for his return, Timmy understood he hadn't escaped, not yet. He stood at the edge of a moment, the door closing behind him but revealing shadows beyond shadows, with shape, purpose, and watching eyes. What lay in this new room? Was it sanctuary or the beginning of something far more horrific? Timmy stood frozen in the dim light of the room, breathless and trembling. Shadows flickered at the edges of his vision, lurking just out of reach, but he felt a pulse of warmth radiating from the memories of his mother, her love, her laughter that fought against the encroaching chill. "Timmy!" A soft voice broke through the uneasy silence. It hung in the air like a forgotten promise, familiar yet distant. Heart racing, he turned to where the voice came from, searching for some sign of hope. The room felt like a dream and a nightmare rolled into one. Walls were lined with pictures and shifting landscapes. Looking closer, he realized each frame swallowed the light, becoming darker, more sinister. His heart sank. Were they watching him, like the others? "Get back!" shouted a voice from the doorway, but it was too late. Mr. Clark had followed him through, a predatory gleam in his dark eyes. The shadows twisted and churned around him like sentient beasts, looming and restless. "It's time to claim what's yours, Timmy," Mr. Clark hissed, stepping closer. His grin curled into a sickening mockery of affection. "You belong to the darkness, just like your mother." "No," Timmy shouted, summoning every ounce of defiance he could muster. The shard he gripped pulsed with light once more, a beacon to guide him through the murk. "I won't let you take me." Suddenly, the photographs twisted, revealing a vision of his mother, her smile frozen in time, and her eyes brimming with both love and sorrow. The shadows recoiled, hissing at the brightness, but Timmy felt unyielding. "Mom!" he screamed, brandishing the shard, its glimmer illuminating the dark tendrils that swirled closer. "Remember who you are," the likeness of his mother said, her voice reaching out like a warm embrace. "You are strong, stronger than the shadows." Realized courage surged through him, igniting the light within. "I choose the light," he declared, lunging toward Mr. Clark. The jagged shard carved through the darkness, slicing the shadows that reached for him. They screeched, writhing and retreating as beams of radiance pushed back against the onslaught. With each step, he felt lighter, as if the shadows were unraveling their grip, hesitating before their inevitable doom. "You cannot win," Mr. Clark shouted, a mix of anger and fear rising sharply in his tone. He advanced, shadows swirling around him like a cape. But Timmy was no longer afraid. "Watch me," Timmy countered, feeling the light swell within his heart, finding strength and joy in being more than just a vessel of fear. "You will not hold me captive anymore." In one final impulsive motion driven by adrenaline and a primal urge to protect himself and his mother, he thrust the shard forward. Light erupted in blinding brilliance, casting away the darkness, sending the shadows screeching back. But Mr. Clark lunged, too, darkness gripping for him one last time. "You can't escape your destiny," he roared, a fierce ambition fueling his strides. "No," Timmy shouted as light exploded and swirled around them, crashing into the inky void, dissipating the oppressive shadows like the morning sun breaking through a storm. Time seemed to stand still as the world erupted in light white and golden, a blinding finale that bathed every corner of the room. The images in the photographs flickered and shuddered, flicking through moments of joy and love until everything stabilized in a breathtaking stillness. And suddenly it was quiet. Timmy opened his eyes, and the shadows were gone. The room felt warm and alive, a sanctuary overflowing with memories of laughter, sunlight streaming through open windows. "Timmy," a voice echoed, rich with love. Timmy turned sharply, and there stood his mother, no longer a specter in darkness, but bright and radiant. "Mom!" he cried, rushing into her embrace, feeling her warmth surround him like a soft, protective cocoon. Tears streamed down his cheeks as she pulled him close. "It's okay, sweetheart. You did it," she whispered, pressing a kiss to his forehead. "We're safe now," she reassured him, her eyes sparkling with love. "What about Mr. Clark?" Timmy murmured, the name still heavy on his tongue. "It's over," she said firmly, but there was a softness in her eyes too. "The shadows cannot hold us anymore. You faced them, you fought, and you won." Timmy looked around at the light flooding the room, searched for the lingering nightmares, but he felt none. The shadows he had feared so long were gone, pushed away by his heart's fierce light. As they stood together, warmth enveloping them both, Timmy realized that home was not just a place, but a feeling, a sanctuary born of love, laughter, and strength. In that moment, the door to his past closed, sealing off the darkness behind him. Outside, the night continued, but the chill of dread was nowhere to be felt. There was life ahead, a future untainted by darkness. And as Timmy held tightly to his mother, he whispered, "We'll be okay. One Tiwi?" "Yes, my brave boy," she answered, the bond between them forever strengthened by their battle. Timmy knew she was right. They were free, finally free. And as dawn broke through the window with fresh hope, an essence of a new beginning, he realized that they could face anything now. But before you go, I need you to act fast. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss our next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us reach more fans. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. Share what you think is coming next. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support is crucial, and only true fans understand how important these actions are. Don't hold back, let us do this together.